we are really excited to dive into this because over the last few months, I've heard from a lot from our creative audience. And I think that this topic is one of the key things on people's minds. How am I going to offer a service that is applicable right now? So we've brought Michael Tranmer in as our guest today. Michael is a coach, a speaker, and a writer. And his background or his expertise is in helping people add new services to their line of work. And his background is actually in the corporate world. He hit rock bottom, made a shift, and that whole experience has made him uniquely positioned to help people through the current crisis. And so I'm really excited that he's taken his time out of his writing schedule to share with the creatives in our community. So without further ado, let's start the conversation with Michael. Let's dig in first into what we want to cover here today.
Yeah, what we're going to do, we've sort of broken it down into three parts. And the first part, we're going to try to really shake your perspective and shake your mind a bit to pull in this new perspective, perhaps, of where you can have new offerings for your services, or you can also learn from other folks and really see how your experience that you've had, that you have built up, can really be your superpower. So part one is really cracking open your perspective. Then we're going to lead into a breakout group at the end of part one. All this is going to go pretty quick, where you're going to get to interact with each other and discuss that. Part two, we're going to come back in and focus a little bit on mindset and really expansive mindset, what we can do in particular during these pandemic times. And lastly, we're going to talk about a framework to get into testing out and launching your idea, and then we'll end off with one final breakout room.
Awesome. That's great. And so one of the things that makes Creative Pulse unique is we're always looking for kind of actionable takeaways. What is the actionable promise that we're making to folks here today?
Yeah, that one at the end, once we get to it, breakout number 2, it's going to be, what is that first step that you can take to try a new service, to test something out? So it just all everything starts with one step. Even this idea here tonight started with one thought and one step.
Absolutely. Awesome. So we know where we're going. Let's start in the beginning. Let's get a little background. I touched on the fact that you had a pretty formative moment in your own personal history recently. Tell us a little bit about that, your background, get people caught up.
Yeah, for sure. So who the heck am I? I'm an engineer, actually. So I really appreciate my way sneaking into this creative world. I really appreciate it. Before all my world sort of shook around, I worked for 12 years as an engineer. I specialize in coastal engineering, so that's anything along the waterfront. And I still exist in that space to an extent today. But I had the job, got the condo down the street in West 7th, and I was married. And for all intents and purposes, things were good, but they weren't great. It was a real comfortable, safe sort of existence, and without getting into all the details, that the marriage came to a real sudden and hard end about 2.5 years ago for me, and it was and why it's kind of relevant at this time is what came after it was that fear, that loss, that uncertainty, that blank slate, which for me it was in my relationship in the end of the marriage. But it's the same sort of feelings and emotions that a lot of people are experiencing right now, and that could be through a job loss, that could be through health, but it's the same. It's the same sort of thing. And for me, it took a little bit of realization to get to this, but it was exactly what I needed to really crack my shell out of that comfortable world that I was in before.
Awesome. So we're seeing right now a time where all industries, but specifically here tonight, we're talking about creatives, are experiencing chaos. Now, it's not obviously the same backstory, but a lot of the same emotions, right? And so are you noticing any trends in the entrepreneur world, in the creative world, that certain challenges that people are having that may parallel that story? And also, what are people doing differently now to create new opportunities?
Yeah, for sure. And the parallels, the parallel for me, I'll just continue on with my story a touch. It was a process. There was a lot of crying in the streets going, like I live here in Fairview where we are now. And it it was a process. But through that, started going inward and doing the inner work, and I got to appreciate more about who I was and what really lit my soul on fire. And it never really was the engineering. And through the process, I started working with a life coach of my own, and then also saw how I could do the same thing. And so there became a transition where I eventually started doing the coaching full time and left the safe corporate world behind. And so that's sort of transition number 2, which was scary and absolutely uncomfortable. And the parallel that leads to is, jumping into that's a new offering, right? I never knew how to be an entrepreneur before, so I had to learn that. So that parallel of stepping into that new thing of, who am I to call myself a coach? Who am I to lead and motivate and inspire others? But it's all the same feelings, and a lot of that is, the fear and the self-doubt that people have. But, it took me really having my ego cracked and my shell cracked to be able to go deep and really appreciate that's like, I can do this, and this feels good to do this.
Right. That's awesome. So, I think that a lot of people right now are facing a different type of rock bottom because they're no longer able to do what they did before. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of, it's different, but it's the same, where you came to a point where you couldn't do what you did before either. Mm-hmm. And so the reasons I've seen, I dug through and spoke to and saw the questions come in from our ticket holders here, but challenges around, clients canceling or postponing projects left, right, and center, challenges around being laid off, and just not being able to deliver your services the way that you did before. In this room, we've got a video producer where, that's a very in-person thing, and 99.9% of jobs have changed. So what are you seeing people in this position do now to address this? Yeah, let's start there.
Yeah. One of the ways, and then obviously the way that I'm most familiar with is people pivoting to position themselves as a mentor, as a leader, as a coach, where that really is, if you have an expertise in videography, instead of just doing that, you are teaching other people to do that. And and we know that the whole education space is 100% doable online these days, and it's only going to become more so that way. So that whole just shift of like, all right, I'm an expert in, we talked about the example earlier on, an artist that I know, and she does this incredible paintings with these little glass pieces on it, and I own a piece of her work, and I always ask her, how do you do this? How do you do this? How do you make this painting? Like, I don't have that skill. I can't replicate it, but I still want to know how. But she's always like, oh, I can't show anyone that. They're going to steal it and take my business. And I'm like, no. I generally, like, if I knew more about how you did this, I would be talking about it all over town, and you would generate more business.
Right. That's awesome. Okay, so let's dig into that a little bit. How would somebody who's used to offering a service, creative service, how would they shift into even recognizing where an opportunity lies right now?
Yeah, it starts with, if you ever have someone asking you these same questions, how do you do that? How did you create that website? How did you create that landing page? How did you shoot that video? How did you, like, you guys should see what's going on in this room. It's epic. Like, how do you do this? If you have people asking you how you do something, and so for me, it was, how did you, in the beginning was, how did you recover from your breakup? And then it was, how did you become a coach? Because that's how I shifted. I started coaching more coaches and helping them get started in their business. But if you have that, if people are asking you that question, even one person, like, how do you do what you're doing? So the shift is, okay, there's people interested in what I do. How can I now see myself as a teacher, as a coach?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think that one of the challenges people face when they're thinking about shifting their offerings, and then right now it feels quite drastic because you might not even be able to do what you did before at all, is that resistance of, like, doing something completely unrelated, right? So starting from the how did you standpoint, should allow them to connect the dots on their experience a little bit better.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Cool. Okay. So what a good step from here. Is this a good time for our breakout?
Yeah. So we've sort of planted the seed. It's the two. Yeah, it's sort of like, what do I do? What's my expertise? And has anyone asked me recently how I do what I do? And could I teach other people how I do what I do? Don't worry about the how or the what or any of that stuff, but the possibility is where.
What's possible.
Yeah, what's possible.
Right. So we're taking on a little bit of a journey here, guys, on just digging into. You are starting with a certain level of expertise. That's required for you to do what you do. What kind of advice could you give if somebody was to ask? What could be valuable for someone? Let's have a short conversation.
For us, mostly everybody's kind of dealing with the chaos, but at least in my group, we were fortunate enough that we're all kind of pursuing personal projects or exploring other skills. For me, I've got a 3D printer I purchased recently, and am just teaching myself, 3D modeling in new software, so I can start bringing a lot more of these ideas to life tangibly. I also pointed out that today I got my Arduino starter kit, because basic circuitry is also something that I've always been familiar with on the periphery, but I've really wanted to get into, just to, again, start freeing up some of those ideas, not necessarily for to actually sell something and turn it into a business idea, but at least to continue exploring and taking advantage of that.
Awesome.
Right
now. And Stephen, I'd love to hear from you. Were there any ideas around potential services that you guys talked about?
Yeah, no, we had some really, really great conversations, and potential services came up. We had a group, most of which in that the design space, whether it be art directors or someone who owns their design business. And I think really they've been facilitating conversations within their client bases about, okay, how can we help our clients to actually create new ideas? So for instance, one that I heard was, I have a friend who is an art director at a different agency, and he went up to a local coffee shop and actually created their first website where they can sell coffee online. So, some really great conversation was going around. So I think people are taking advantage of the situation.
That's awesome. Taking advantage of the situation. Not the phrasing that people are looking for, but it's the truth. Okay, so I bet that you guys had some interesting questions come up through that. Maybe some that we'd like to address later on. If you want to share those questions in the chat, Chris and Stephen are doing a great job of just curating those, and that we'll be able to talk about those in the Q&A section. But with that, let's continue with this conversation, and let's dig into a little bit more about the fears that people are dealing with, because it's nice to say like, hey, you can do something completely different. It's all within your power. And hey, you're an expert. People will want this, but there are still so many roadblocks that happen before people can execute on that. And most of them are internal. Things like, I'm not senior enough. Nobody would, want advice from somebody like me. Things like, I don't know, pricing, like that's just too complicated. I'm not sure would I even be able to make this work? And then there's the obstacle. It's not really a fear, but I didn't sign up for this, right? Like I want to be a designer. I don't want to advise people on how to design. I don't want to show people how to take videos that are going to work for them. I want to do it. That's what I got in this for. So how would you reply to those? Or you can take one or whatever you want.
Yeah, well, let's hit all three. I'll forget the third one by the time we get to it, though. But I think, and just with the example with the 3D printer it was Chris? Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally awesome. You only have to be, when Chris was showing the 3D printer, he's like, oh, and like he didn't say I'm excited, but I could sense that he was perhaps hopefully a little bit excited. Like, I'm going to learn about the 3D printer. I'm going to learn about this motherboard thing I don't want to learn about that. I can guarantee you that. But if you're going to learn about something, all you have to be is one step ahead of someone else to be able to teach them about it. And if I was going to go learn about how to do 3D printing and I was going to put all that effort into learning, the best way to cement that into your brain is to teach it back to someone else, almost in real time. almost in real time. So if you have a 3D printer, I'm just going to keep beating this example pretty hard. It's like, I'm going to commit the next 2 weeks to learning this thing inside out. And how I'm going to do that is every night at 7 p.m., I'm going to go live on Instagram and Facebook, and I'm going to teach what I learned that day to probably the one person that shows up, and my mom or my sister, whoever it is, and then maybe more people will start showing up. But it's like for me, and I've done this, we talked about my book, and I did these live readings over the last few weeks. And that was necessary because I was really holding off and procrastinating doing that level of edit. But when I put myself out there and made that commitment to show up every night, then I did that work and then showed up and had to, I wasn't really learning in that same sense, but it's that commitment to get it done.
Right. So I heard two answers within that, right? The first is, if you're feeling too junior right now, there is somebody more junior than you, right? And so take the pressure off yourself. You're not trying to advise your role models. You're trying to help somebody else out. So that's the first thing I heard. And the second thing was accountability, putting something in place that's going to allow you to get started, which is two really great answers. So that's one of the key elements. The other element I mentioned was around fears around pricing and getting really far ahead with the complexity of an idea before you've even started. How do people deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, there is no pricing when you're teaching someone something you just learned that day, and you're teaching to an audience of one. You're doing it for free. You're doing a beta group. A lot of people that I help become wellness coaches, I say, in the beginning, they're like, I have no experience, so you need to get experience. So get a beta group of people to commit to working with you for 1 month, and you speak to them 1 hour every week. So you speak to them 4 times, and maybe you get 5 people. So you have 20 conversations over the course of a month, all for free. And the only thing you get at the end is a testimonial, because you have impacted their life for sure. But yeah, things like pricing and websites and all that other stuff, learn as we go, and we're going to talk about that.
Later problems.
Those are later problems.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. And then the last piece I'd love to address is the feeling of like, I just don't want to. I don't want to change what I do. I like what I do, but right now I can't. So how are you responding to that person?
Yeah, that's a great one, and that's a lot of people that I hear when they say, I hate my job. And a lot of people I work with, like, they hate their job. They want to start to be an entrepreneur. They want to be a coach in some fashion and work for themselves. But you really need to do whatever you can to reframe it as an opportunity. Like, if you are a creative and you don't want to mentor someone, but you're open to doing it for the next couple months while this shakes out, how can you frame that so it's going to help and explode your business down the road? And something we spoke about earlier is, if you teach an online course as you make it up as you go along for a group of 4 or 5 or 7 people, and they really get to know your expertise, like this is your fan base that's growing, that's going to really fuel your other work down the road. So if you can keep in mind, like, if your end game, your long goal is to fuel your main business, how can you switch your perspective on this detour to see how these people are going to become your word of mouth, your fans, your supporters for your other work?
Yeah. That's awesome. The changing of perspective, I feel like you speak a lot about the expansive mindset. I'd love if you could dig into that a little bit.
Yeah, it's huge right now, and this maybe we'll take a step back to the pandemic world right here, and we've been in it for almost 2 months now. And in the beginning, me and all my spiritual folks were kind of excited, right? We were like, this is the awakening that the earth needs, and humanity, and all this stuff going on, and the shift that we all need. And there was a lot of excitement because a lot of people have been through that on a personal level. I know I felt like that, and I also know I've felt pretty crappy a lot of times over the last couple weeks, especially last week hit quite a few low points. But getting back to the beginning, it was all about being expansive and being open to opportunity and keeping your energy up and being healthy. And if you're working at home, please don't go from your bed to your desk, from your desk to your couch to your bed. Like, do it. we got guilty over here. Do whatever you do, whatever shakes your bones to keep your energy up, to keep your blood moving, to stay expansive. Because when you're in this space of expansion and opportunity, you become more attuned to what is working out there, and you see opportunities. Because if you just start to crumble and you're checking Twitter and you see death counts and then you see Trump and then all this stuff, if you've been doing that for 7 weeks, you probably don't feel great right now. But if you've been focusing on, recovery, 7 o'clock cheer and all these beautiful things going on, then that's when you really open yourself up and you can look people in the eyes and see opportunities come in.
Right. Okay. So we've touched on a lot in a little time here. We've talked a lot about the challenges people are feeling, and I'm sure there are more that will come up during the question and answer, but let's move into execution, right? So everything we've shared so far is about brainstorming. It's about what's possible and how to shift our perspective. But if we were to do this, if we were to say, okay, I'm going to leave this talk, I'm not just going to learn something new, but I actually want to try this out. How could I go on a journey here and start something new within my current business or as a side hustle, whatever that looks like for them? What would you advise for that person?
I'm gonna check the notes as we go along here, but let's use the 3D printer because that's the one that came up. So I'm gonna learn about 3D printing. I have another main business or maybe a couple other ones, but I'm gonna learn about 3D printing over the month of May, starting tomorrow, May 1st. Now, okay, so if I'm gonna learn about it, maybe I can be a mentor to other people. Okay, so that's cool. For question one is like why am I learning about 3D printing, and also like what is the end game? If I put effort into learning about this and teaching others, will it support my other business that I have? So question number one is like why are you doing that? And for this example, that makes sense. Part number two in this framework that we're walking through is it's own your story, and then that may or may not fit in this example. But in terms of if you are starting a new branch of business, we'll say the 3D printer, you have to have some sort of emotional connection to the people that are also on the other side of the screen to help. And that's why we started talking about my story. Like, you guys are on the screen going, who's this dude? Like, why's he sitting here? Who is he? You have to, and it doesn't have to be a life-altering trauma that you've been through, but you have to own your story about how you got into the work that you're in, why you're learning about 3D printing. Maybe you're learning about that to solve another problem, but you have to be open about this. Number three, we talk after that about narrowing your niche and market research. Really, if you're going to put a lot of effort into pivoting and being a mentor of sorts, you first need to have people that are interested in this, and that's where we came back in the beginning about, are people asking you, how do you do this?
Right. Can you dig into that a little bit deeper? What, beyond just looking at, who's asking me questions and how does that relate to my expertise? Is there more that you would say for somebody who's, the 3D printing example, something, what would market research look like for that person?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just for the same reasons that you are getting into it, are you aware of other people that are getting into it for the same reason? Or is there a need around town? Is there a need in your industry? Are you plugged into chat groups or whatever it is? Like, is this a popular subject, or is this a hobby? Is this a hobby that you're interested in and it fuels your creativity? You have to make that differentiation before you. It's all about where you're going to plug all your energy. So if there's no audience, then there's no point.
That's something that I've struggled with a lot during this time. Not the market research element, but what you just said about energy is like, I've got all the ideas in the world, but my energy now is way smaller than it was before. And so being really selective about what it is I'm going to execute on is really important. So that piece addresses one of the challenges, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I could talk about energy all night. For me, it's I, unsubscribe from an email list every day and say no to a Zoom call every day. If you can do those two things, you're going to save a lot of energy for yourself. So after those first 3 steps, we talked about get clear on your why, own your story, market research. Number 4, you can create your content and grow your audience. And so if you're doing the 3D printer, it's totally cool to create it as you go. If you're going to learn something during the day and teach it again at night, your audience is aware of that. Like you're giving them something for free. There's going to be a little bit of leniency, but it's going to hold you accountable. And one of the simplest ways, if a lot of people are into creating online courses, when I hear someone getting really excited about that, I'm like, whoa, dog. Slow. That's good, but online courses, unless you have a huge funnel of audience coming in, people think they just make the course and then the money happens. Doesn't work that way. But the easiest way to make a course is to, if you were going to do 4 calls every week, if you're going to record content throughout the month of May, just hit record. And then by the end, you have 4 videos that you can clean them up and do as you wish, but there's a course right there, and you do it by teaching it live.
That's an interesting point. I feel like from what I know of our audience, that almost nobody is thinking to themselves on a normal day, like, I've been wanting to be a coach all my life. Maybe secretly, they're not telling me. But I think that they are thinking, I wish I had a mentor, right? And in fact, that's people come up to me and talk to me like, how do you get mentors? How do you get these great people to speak? Like all these questions around mentorship. And what you just said is kind of amazing when you shift the perspective there, right? If your mentors, A, were putting their hand up and saying, listen, I'll help you, and B, I have material already. It's not just kind of passive mentorship where it's just like, hey, what do you want? It's like, no, I know what you want. Here, people have asked these questions of me before. I've recorded them, go through it and ask me some more questions, right? So, I mean, flipping that upside down for people might make it a little bit more approachable, I think. Yeah, awesome. That's great. Let's dig through. I love what you did with the 3D printing. I wonder if we could do that again with another profession. Let's take video as an example. So somebody who is, a video producer or videographer going out, live sets, having to deal with the new reality that we're in right now. Let's walk through that framework one more time.
Yeah, and can we use it? Yeah. Can we do this? Like where we're sitting right here. So, like we've mentioned many times, like the folks online are seeing this, and look at that tree. Or that's the orange building behind. It looks incredible. Like this is not how most of us have been looking at like on our Zoom screens the last couple weeks. Can everyone online? I can see a couple at the top. Can you guys agree? Can we get a hand? Yeah. Can we get a little? Yeah. It's all. We see a few folks there. That's amazing. Like so, this is impressive. This is next level. So I know if I were to show folks that I know what is possible, and this didn't come together easily or cheaply by the look of these cameras, but this is a pivot. This is a shift to be able to offer this quality of service. I know people that would pay a lot of money to have their Zoom meetings looking like this. So that's sort of number one. That's the idea. And so this is different. Like you could also teach someone how to do this. If you had someone filming you as you set up, like that'd be the easiest way. So you could teach someone how to create this, but also this is a whole new service. This looks good.
Cool. So we have got our why, right? You've got a situation where you can't do what you did before. Yeah. You've got an idea that you want to build your business with it, and it's financially possible. You can see that. Story is a little bit hard to kind of make up, so we won't make that up right now. But we can imagine that there's a story element there. And it probably comes in the transition that just happened.
Oh yeah, I mean the story is pandemic. Yeah. That's the story.
So what's the third step for us?
Third step is market research. So like just having this quality of video, you're going to be able to shoot out to people, and like you could make a video about, week 1 we were on Zoom and it looked kind of crappy. We pivoted, we did this. Isn't that incredible? Look at that. Right. Are there and send it out to your network, put that content online. Who else is interested in this service?
Right. So in this case, we're talking about Nathan Skillen behind the scenes here, by the way, guys. He's who set this up for us, and we're very thankful. And so in this case, a market research initiative could look like comparing last month's event, which was still pretty badass, but was your kind of standard Zoom setup a little better, to something like this, where we're pretty slick in terms of visuals. And comparing that and saying, would you want something like this? Is this something you'd be interested in?
Yeah. So and then it's talking about it. It's creating content. It's posting online. It's sending out to your email lists and test. Like, who knows? Like, you probably have an idea. I know people would love this service, but show them and ask them and create content and ask people, would you like something like this? Like, I guess the point is, don't be afraid to not have it perfect. Like, we saw, it took a little longer to get going, but the outcome is really impressive.
Yeah, perfection paralysis.
Yes.
Right? Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so we have a fun breakout session planned. Is there any other nuggets that we want to give to folks before we jump into the breakout?
We were going to talk about sales.
Oh yeah. Let's dig into that a little bit. So I feel like when you speak to people at any length about starting something new, eventually they come to the point where they realize that they're just too scared to sell it. Like, they don't want to be too salesy, especially right now. They don't want to come across as tone deaf. There's so many reasons why somebody could convince themselves that selling is not a good idea right now. Mm-hmm. What's your response?
Yeah, and I was on a call with a client of mine actually earlier this week, and they were developing this thing, and I kind of knew he wanted to sell me on it, and it was not something I was interested in, but it was really painful to just go through this conversation and not have him actually.
Right, that's the nightmare situation.
Ask like, would you like this? Is this something you'd be interested in? But it's so many things, what it all really comes down to is you're solving a problem. Like, and you can't take things personally. You can't. It's not you. Someone would be. People are afraid of having been said no to.
Right.
Rejection.
Right.
It all comes. But if you don't take that personally, and this goes into the dating world too, but I think that's a different show for later. When you don't take it personally and you realize it's all about just solving someone's problem, you create that disconnect, and it's not. You're not selling yourself. You're enrolling them to solve their problem and take them on the journey. And in the beginning, if someone's starting something new, like we spoke about earlier, if there's no money involved, it's hard to keep them accountable. So that's why you want to keep something to a short duration. But once you get on and you start building it, the money becomes important to have people stay accountable, to show up and learn from you. Because if it's free, people will disappear.
Yeah. So my background's in marketing, and so I'm getting a lot of these questions too. Everyone be like, I don't want to sell something right now. And the way that we're addressing it is in that relevancy factor, right? So I feel like most people have 5 to 7 fires that they're trying to put out either personally or professionally right now. And part of that market research is going to uncover whether or not the thing that you're trying to sell is connecting to one of those 5 to 7 fires, right? And so what I love about the framework you kind of laid up is that it sort of solves itself. If you get to the end of that series, then like being too salesy would be hard, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're solving a problem. I was just looking for someone to design the cover for my book. So if I looked at a couple people, if I don't go with one of them, I still have the problem. I still don't have a book cover. I still can't get my book out in a couple weeks without a cover. So it's they're really, by them making an offer to me, and I eventually went with someone super professional, and I'm super excited about it. It's helping me, and I had money to spend. Just because there's a pandemic and that aspect, I have money that I put aside to spend on that. So there are people out there that still have money. There are people that are looking to spend money and still have their problems solved. These folks with the new website at the coffee shop, they need to spend money to make money.
Right. Awesome. Cool. Anything else before we jump to breakout?
No, let's do it.
Let's do it. So breakout number 2, folks. Let's go to the slide there, and we'll review the questions at hand. This is our recurring theme. If you've ever been to a Creative Pulse event before, We want to know how you're going to take action, and let's have a conversation around that. So, want to walk us through the prompt here?
Yeah, for sure. So the prompt is, what is the first step that you're going to do? I will take action by. So whoever goes first, they start with that line. I will take action by. I am going to explore this. I had this idea. You could bounce it off the other folks a little bit, but the other folks in the group, if the person presents the idea, I'm going to take action by, keep supporting them, going, all right, what are you going to do next? Have you ever thought about this? Oh, I know this person who's into this. Oh, I know this potential client who could be, and just throw stuff at them, just spitball. Some of it'll go somewhere, some of it won't. But one of these things in these breakout rooms, it's going to be big. It's going to be juicy.
Yeah, and I'm going to guess that there's going to be a certain number of people who are going to say, I don't know yet what the service is. And so maybe that your time can be devoted to a little bit of a deeper dive into what service you might provide. So you've got a few options for that, but it's really action oriented, right? So, awesome, everyone's back. Welcome back, everybody. So I'd like to do that again, just kind of recap our learnings and any key questions that came up during the breakout session. I'd love to start with Stephen this time. What were some of the highlights from that breakout session?
No, yeah, we had some really great conversations. I think some of the highlights were definitely, a lot of the people, again, were in that design, working as designers, or they're doing something on their own, freelancing, or looking to freelance, or looking to become, or to find a new agency role. And really it was just breaking out and how can they develop their skills, but also, how can they find new things to do during this time? For instance, one person is taking up painting or has restarted to paint, which is really cool. So maybe we can see a new site launch for her new painting site.
Yeah. Sweet. You had some time to really mull this over amongst yourselves. Chris and Stephen are going to help us navigate the questions. I think that you guys have been putting questions in the side chat here. Who's first? Chris?
One of the learnings that came out of ours, and it was actually shared amongst our team, I've now shared a link in the chat to Let's Make Lemonade. And this is an initiative by, again, one of our community members, Annabelle King. Annabelle. How do we kind of repackage the services or that skill set that we do offer into something more adaptable for these times? And I think it's a really great demonstration of the type of innovation that we can be doing around our creative services in this time. So I kind of set that as a really high bar, like as a benchmark of what can be done.
I was thinking of you, Annabelle, during this talk when Michael mentioned you got to own your story. Annabelle's company name is I Like Storytelling, right? Mm-hmm. So I think you're perfectly positioned to do this, and I love the initiative. Great. So thank you for sharing that and for the link there. Who are we hearing from first on Q&A?
Getting both your opinions on when you are starting, say, some sort of coaching business or online business like that, is making your hobby your business a bad thing, or should your profession be your business? Or what is your take on making a hobby into your profession?
Cool question. Did you get it?
Yeah. Multiple facets. I think there's got to be some boundaries there. All I can speak, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer for that one, but I know sports are my hobbies, like surfing and biking and skiing. So those are my babies. I'm not saying I'm the best at them, but I don't want to spend my time teaching those to other people. Like when I go away on a trip, I'm going away surfing. The last thing I want to do is, to an extent, I'll teach friends and family a little bit, but that's just where I draw the boundary. So like sports and my hobbies are my things.
I guess an interesting way to think about that is would you be excited by it? Right?
That's the question. That's the question for anything. It's
I have certain things, right? So I'm obsessed with learning sourdough. I started before the pandemic. Thank you very much. But I'm not at the stage where I'd be interested in like making a course. That's a little unusual for me. I like monetizing things. I used to teach guitar when I was 14 years old and had no business doing that. But that was an interesting idea for me, right? So I think it kind of is a little bit it'll uncover itself. Would you feel like you're just doing it for the money if you taught this skill? Or would you be honored and excited by the opportunity to help somebody out that you didn't know, or maybe that you did know, right? So I think that's probably
the real beauty with coaching and mentoring is to really help people get over their fears or whatever their setbacks are, or to build that tight emotional connection. It's often for coaches and coachees, it's that meaningful interpersonal connection. I know a lot of us spend a lot of time behind the screens and behind the scenes, and we don't sometimes appreciate why we aren't fully fulfilled in life. But so coaching can be that gap to link those two up. But I love how you said, can I be excited about that? I ask myself that question about many things per day. And that's why we started with meditation, so we can clear out all the crap and we can really get present with ourselves. And we have to do some things we aren't fully excited about all the time. But I love that question.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That's cool. Chris, do you have a question for us?
So how might someone access like informal or formal mentorship network, or the insights that come from that type of relationship outside of, hiring a coach? Because I'm sure there, if Michael, if you're selling your services, if the people here in the audience aren't necessarily the people that like are your potential customers, or are they? Like, what's the level of like service that you provide? I'm assuming that, like, for someone where I am, I wouldn't be able to, leverage your services in the most effective way. But how might I still benefit from that? Like, if I couldn't afford your services or the services of a coach?
Yeah, I think we talked about this a couple days ago about how can people get mentors, how can people get coaches, and I know a bunch of them. So if it's not me, I can connect anyone who's interested with another coach. But the other way that we talked about was really just creating your own network, your own mastermind and a mastermind really is a couple guys or a couple girls getting together on a regular basis to have a focused conversation. And please feel free to reach out to me if you want. I'll copy and paste what I use for my free mastermind that I've done with people, because I don't like wasting time. And so, but you have to have this focused conversation and focused prompts to make it worth people's time to show up. But that can be free. That can be, people in this group can reach out to some other people that they want to connect with and meet on a weekly or bi-weekly basis and just exchange ideas and just have you talk, just like Chris was talking there, because you just, like, really most of the time all we need to do is talk out our own crap and find our own answers. And so to have someone be a mirror for what you're saying and to get that different perspective. It does become challenging though if there is no, it doesn't have to be money, but if there's no skin in the game, people will start falling off left and right. But it's an option. Yeah,
I mean, I think that there's a few. So mastermind is one. Informal mentorship is a thing, right? Like it's probably the more common thing, really, right? So I, in my career, have had several informal mentors. When I say informal, it means I'm not paying them, but they're helping me out. I've had coaches who I've paid tens of thousands of dollars to, and I've started 3 or 4 different masterminds with different entrepreneurs. And so there's different ways you can engage in, and sometimes there's informal masterminds. Maybe it's just a group of entrepreneurs that you call when, it's your bat phone, whatever. So I think that if I understand your question correctly, Chris, is that, if before you go and offer a service to somebody else, you might want more experience on the other side of the seat, right? And so that's a great idea. And I think that people should take advantage of all the different options available to them so that they can better understand what their future clients are going to be experiencing and provide a higher level of services. So when I launched my own coaching services a little over a year ago, I went through all of the different experiences and I said, I really like this. I hated this thing when it happened. How am I going to deal with drop off? All of these elements uncover themselves only because I've experienced it in the past. And I think that's a pretty valuable thing to address as you go on and think about offering consultative and coaching and mentoring in your own Rolodex of services. Very cool. Is there any questions from the audience that we can get our audience members to actually ask here today?
While we wait for someone else to submit a question, I do want to kind of hone in on the transition. Okay, so not an expansion of my own services, but let's say that transition to a new industry. So, Michael, like you having gone through that, or like the substantial shift, right, in terms of, you know, career direction and what's bringing you fulfillment day to day. Like, what do you wish you had known before making that transition that might have made that easier? Because my situation is one more similar to that, where I'm looking to change industries more than repackage my services from that industry in a way that the industry can use during lockdown.
Can I swear on here? Yeah. It's fucking scary, man. It's so scary. So if you're feeling scared and frightened and unsure and like you want to puke and you don't know what's going on, you're going in the right direction. Like that's how we move towards our soul's ambition, like the thing that's really calling for us. Like this has been the most terrifying last 2.5 years of my life, with the relationship and then, you know, leaving a very stable engineering job to start my own thing. Like really over the last year and a bit, that has been even harder. So what do I wish I had known? Nothing. And you can't even know what you don't know. And that's what's so beautiful about it. I don't regret any of it. And now I'm even pivoting again to sort of like angle back into the engineering world a little bit and serve them in a different way with a new perspective. But I had to, and I really appreciate all the entrepreneurs that are here and creatives and you yourself. I mean, entrepreneurs are crazy. I just appreciate them so much more, just like I appreciate authors so much more. My word, what a journey to put together a book. But so if you're about to make a huge switch, so what can you do? Just be easy on yourself. Don't quit your day job. Don't quit your day job. Don't quit the thing that's providing you that. As much as you hate it, try and reframe why you hate it so much. But hang on to that income as long as possible while you build the other thing on the side. There will come a point, and this happened for me, where you have to like go all in and cut it off and say, I can't put any more energy into the day job. And then things get a whole new level of scary, and that'll be normal when that happens. But go easy on yourself. Just be prepared to pivot when things don't work out. Don't quit the day job quite yet, but keep having this, whatever the support network is for you, to be able to talk through, because you don't want to go through it alone. That's the worst thing.
That's awesome. There's an interesting thing that you must have experienced, which is going from being an engineer in a corporate environment to shifting to being an entrepreneur to looking for clients. And I think that's an experience that a lot of people are having in this audience, where they may have been laid off, right? And sure, they'd be willing to explore offering a new service or going out on their own as a freelancer or an entrepreneur, but they have no audience, or they feel like they have no audience. And so how would you address that fear and that challenge, which is a pretty real one, for people who are looking at the framework and the idea and realizing that, that's what's it for if you can't get it in front of somebody?
Yeah, the fear and the audience. And let me just tell you, doing that transition to becoming an entrepreneur, like I've always dabbled with wanting to do an MBA, but I really feel like I've done a real world one over the last couple of years, where you learn about sales, you learn about marketing, you learn about putting yourself out there, you learn about running your own business. And it was great, it was fun. But there is a lot there, and the fear is real. But in terms of building the audience, like, yeah, maybe you don't have an audience because you haven't been putting yourself out there and talking about your expertise and really owning what you have. And so that's where, and I know we talked about in the break about building relationships and building your tribe, really. And I have something to gift away to everyone at the end that'll absolutely help with that. But that's such a great great thing to be doing right now is to build your audience, and you do that by creating content, by using social media. And again, if you're going to learn a new skill and you're going to explore something new over the next month or two, just talk about it and post about it, and you'll always be a couple steps ahead of someone. And you're not where you want to be or where you see yourself going, but you'll always be a couple steps ahead. So you don't have an audience until you start doing something.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've had a lot of conversations about this topic in the last little while, and for people being laid off, it's particularly difficult. But your past boss might need this service. The past clients that you worked with them, if it's not directly competitive, you can speak to those people. You have existing relationships. If you own a business and you're finding it's hard, the current clients are obvious, but what about your past clients? What about the clients you didn't win, right? You'll never get a better opportunity to pick up the phone and be like, hey, I'm Ami, you know me as this guy, but right now I know that you're having this problem and I can help. Do you want that help, right? And so, whatever that looks like, I think that there are hidden audiences within everybody's reach. Just takes a little bit of energy and creativity to
and it's such an easy entry point right now to have that compassionate conversation. Just touch base with your past clients and just like, how are you doing? Like, this has been some shit for a lot of people, and different people in different ways, but that just establish that personal connection, and who knows where it goes. Maybe they have a problem you can solve, but just lead in, like be real, be a human. Like, how are you doing?
Awesome. Stephen, I believe, has a question for us now.
Yeah, great. We actually have a good question from Annabelle, so I'm going to unmute her and let her go on the spotlight video quickly. Okay.
Is that working now?
Yeah, hey, how's it going?
Yeah, I'm so big. So are there any kind of daily habits that you can suggest that can help, I suppose, just like open your mind to new potential, new opportunities, like seeing value you can add in different ways? Because one of the things that I find is just trying to shed the old identity of that's what I did and it looked like that. You know what I mean? And just like, if there's things I can do that can just help me see opportunities, I think that would be helpful, like kind of like daily habits or something. I don't know.
Oh, I just got goosebumps. I just lit up. This is my most...
Yeah, it's in our notes. We didn't touch on it. So one thing
my most...
speak about. Yeah, good for you.
And this I talked, because I'm trying, like, once you guys get to know me a little better, I hope we can build relationships through online and then the real world. Yeah, I moved from engineering to coaching and starting a book, but like my bigger picture is to like the book and to be this catapult in this whole new world that I'm creating. And this is really, really uncomfortable to go from what I knew and what I'm familiar with to this vision that I have. And I don't know exactly how that's going to happen, but I know, and to answer your question, Annabelle, you have to go into the unknown to find your new potentials. You have to go into the unknown to find your new potentials. Like, what? Okay, well, what does that mean? Like, what does that even look like? So, like on the simplest level, you have to start. Well, you ultimately have to start thinking differently, and thinking and operating and being differently. So you have to switch up your familiar routines and habits in some certain way. You can't get up, eat the same cereal, go to the same. Well, we don't really go anywhere anymore. So in essence, this is a little bit what has happened. We've had to go into the unknown a little bit. But if you see yourself in a new way, in a new role, as a new business leader, you have to have new experiences. You have to go to physical new places, new parks. You have to walk a different way to the grocery store. You have to be around different people. You can keep your friends and family that you love, but they aren't going to help you get to where you want to go. That I've met more people in the last 2.5 years than I have met in the last 15 years, for sure. Because I need so much help with what I'm creating. And that is hard to meet new people. And new people in new worlds. So there's that piece, which is really exploring the unknown, but then you also like to generate your new ideas. And this is why I'm so passionate about meditation. That's why we started with meditation, because you really need to quiet down the mind, quiet down all the stuff going on, and really sit and be silent with yourself, because you ultimately already know what to do in a lot of instances. You have this feeling and this urge to do and try and create something, but then you start talking yourself out of it, or society starts talking yourself out of it, or your mom says, "Oh, Michael, why would you do that?" Right? Just that people want to keep us safe. Our friends and family want to keep us safe.
You do you have any like morning routines or anything that you do yourself or recommend for people on daily habits?
Yeah, and I love talking about morning routine, because it's all, and for me, for this whole progression through hitting my rock bottom and having to dig myself up out of that, I've really had to like get happy again. That's why the book's called Satori Ananda, Awaken to Happiness, because that's literally what I had to do and get excited about doing. So for me, it's always get my head in the right state in the morning. And I haven't been as good at this lately because things are weird and I'm never as 100% at this, but it's gratitude in the morning. So I have a gratitude journal. I write out 20 things I'm grateful for. Side 1, things that I'm grateful for in the present. This is a good tip, my friends. I'm glad you taught this. So I write out 20 things I'm grateful for. I am grateful for down the left. And then the next 10 things are 10 things that I'm grateful for in the future that I'm creating. So powerful to do that. So I write every morning. I'm a best-selling author. I'm traveling the world on a book tour. I'm impacting millions of people. We're thinking it and we're feeling it and getting excited like it's already happened. And from there, I go on and do meditation, and then I go do exercise, and then I need to do these things and get out of the house because I'm coming back home to work at home. But if I just go from the bed to Twitter to the desk, there's no me. There's no me time. There's no time for the ideas.
That's super interesting. I feel like deciding what you want. So I was reading this million posts on mental health right now, and one of the tips was dress and act according to the life that you want, not the one that we have right now, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's an element of that in being selective about your routine as well, and then the power of repetition and writing things out that you're intentional about, mm-hmm. right? When I've been able to start several businesses up, and I've dealt with what you're talking about, Annabelle, every single time, right? Like I'm not actually a photographer. I'm not actually an agency owner, whatever it is. It feels like you're a fake for a really long time. And the thing that I realized is by saying it to people and saying it to myself, but that's writing it down, really, really helps. Yeah. Because you start to realize your brain doesn't have to pause and think about the words so much anymore. So your advice on getting started by doing a daily live stream, as an example, it allows you to say, "Listen, I'm working with this printer right now," and you figure out how you like to say that, and you suddenly will find a title in there that resonates with you. And I think those repetition pieces, along with that morning ritual, are really, really powerful. That I am statement.
Yeah. Act as if, and soon you will become. And once you appreciate the power of your thoughts, and something I've been leaning into more now is the power of words. Like, so when I go around saying, I'm writing this book and becoming a bestseller author and I'm traveling the world, that feels and sounds good, as opposed to I said, well, I put together this book and it's no good. Yep. Just contraction.
Let's talk about the fail fast idea, because once you get going, the thing that usually ends a project is the fact that you realize that it's never good enough, right? So can you walk us through how we can execute quickly, how we can do this? Because it feels like maybe there's actually a huge opportunity in front of a lot of us, but time keeps ticking and that opportunity is waning. So like, How do you deal with these?
Yeah, it's the
these
balance between perfectionism and learning by doing and getting in the ring, getting in the field of play. And it is a balance. Like, we want to put together quality content and quality work. But depending on what that is, like if you're going live on Instagram, like who cares? Like, have 4 talking points and talk about them. And most people already know they know enough of the knowledge about what their expertise at. You don't need to learn any more about that. What you need to do is get over your fear of putting yourself out there and getting on camera and getting on whatever that, if that's something you need to explore, get over that fear and realize where you want to improve. Maybe it's in public speaking, maybe it's in whatever it is. But we learn by doing.
The question I have is going to be around how specific this needs to be, right? I think a lot of people are going to struggle. They're going to walk away and be like, that was nice, but like, I don't want to be a coach. Like, what does this look like for me? What do you think the options are for delivery for people? How do we take the elements of what you're saying and apply it in different ways?
I think it's just staying accountable. And if you were in a group with folks today, message each other and check in with each other in a week. And the things that you said you were going to do, did you do them? There's so many fears are going to come up over the next, in between now and tomorrow. And it's just like, all of these are just thoughts and ideas. And if right now they are exciting, so many, and if they are exciting and they're pulling us in new directions and something that we really love and want to pursue, our ego is going to jump up and try and pull us back and keep us safe. Our parents are going to go, oh no, you're not that. You should just keep doing this. Yeah. But if we commit, just do it. Just try it and just be okay with failing. But build in the accountability any way that you need to.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, we've done sprints and used the fail fast model a lot, even as Creative Pulse. And what I love about it is if you are focused on executing a minimum viable version of whatever you're doing as quickly as you can, then you don't have enough time to get attached to it.
Yeah.
Which, the ego element is pretty powerful, right? And so I've done the opposite, where I've spent months, close to a year on a project, launched it, and it sucked. It didn't sell a single thing or just a handful. And that's crushing. You know what I mean? So that speed aspect is such a gift for people trying new things. Steven's got something he's going to say here.
Yeah, on that note of accountability, there's a really great question talking about how to define your workday, and especially for someone who's switching industries or going into something new, coaching. How do you manage to cut an end to your day, or do you have any tips and tricks on, again, having a work day versus, you say you start your day doing one thing. How do you stop your day?
Who knows? Who knows? I mean, people are, I did something super creative in 1 hour last night that I've been procrastinating on for 2 weeks. So I don't know if I'm the best person to answer that question. But I mean, above anything, I think this is a really interesting time to really tune in with yourselves and see where you are most productive and most efficient. I just the only thing I can really lean into is get outside and go for a walk around the block and just that visual of, like, I go for runs in the morning in here in Fairview and Kitsilano, and there's not many other people outside. So I assume people are going from the bed to the desk. And there is no element of creativity. There's no element of knowing what day it is. There's no element of connecting with nature. There's no element of going outside and getting great ideas. So I would encourage people to explore doing that. And then when you find yourself throughout the day losing productivity, stop. Go outside. Take whatever your drink is. Go for, like, even if it's a 5-minute walk around the block. I'll do that 2 or 3 times a day. And then, yeah, at the end of the day, just do whatever a hard stop is for you. Close your laptop, throw it in so you can't see it, whatever it is.
Yeah, those are all good tips. I was thinking of 2 resources while you're speaking there. There was one which is called The Power of Habit, a book by Charles Duhigg. Fantastic, small book, and it's a great one if you're trying to establish new habits, which I think is a gift available to most of us right now. Because sure, we've been thrown into a routine we don't like, but chances are there was elements of your routine you didn't like before as well. So you get to choose what this one looks like. And so that book's really helpful for understanding how habits get constructed in your brain. And one of my favorite parts of that book, as a marketer, I guess, is that crises and trauma are times when people are more likely to change their habits. So somebody who goes through a divorce is more likely to change their toothpaste or their cereal for some reason, right? So that's pretty powerful because we're all in that together right now. And so you get to choose which ones you want affected. Do you want to change your cereal, or do you want to change something more important to you? You can do it by mistake, or you could do it on purpose. The second resource, maybe we can find a link for you, is a video by a submarine captain. I don't know if anybody saw this. It was going around on Facebook. And he was talking about being at sea, under the water, not seeing the sky for 250 days in a row. And how important routine is on a tube full of men, right? And so, he begins with setting that routine very intentionally, dressing up properly, like personal hygiene being really important. There's a few elements there that I found really interesting that was, and he created the video because of the isolation that people are faced right now. So I think the answer about where the workday begins and ends is actually more about a bigger question of, what do you want your day to look like, life to look like right now? And I think it can't be broken apart. It's not one.
I think it's really also uncomfortable for people now. Like, a lot of people do have more time because they're perhaps not doing a commute, so they're trying to fill it with more Netflix or more drinking or more work. Yeah. But to explore kind of being okay with doing nothing for an hour a day, maybe the meditation. Maybe I've been doing a lot of going to parks and sitting under trees. That's where I get ideas. Just exploring the being of, and not the doing. We're human beings, not human doings. But that in its own is really uncomfortable for people. But the message is that's where we can really have quantum leaps in our businesses and our lives, because we can get clear on ourselves, and we can think about what path we want to do, and we can create those good thoughts, and we can motivate and inspire ourselves, as opposed to just doing and going down the rat wheel.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. People are saying they have a lot more time. I'm on the opposite end with 2 young kids. I know there's a few people with kids in the room here. But it's just as uncomfortable.
Yeah, you guys are screwed.
It's a different thing, right?
Come hang out with me. We'll
There's no trees in our lives, but a lot of all-nighters. So, but it's the same thing, same problem, different boat, right? So I think that's all really interesting. I feel like we could go on for ages here, but we've already run way over time. So let's wrap things up. Ordinarily, we would hang out and have pizza and drink beer at this stage of the evening. Unfortunately, we're not doing that today, but there are some opportunities for hanging out, and I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I want to touch on this point one more time. How will you take action? So we've actually had a conversation about that today, but take a moment and write that down. Don't let that just be a thing you did on an online event, right? What are you going to do tomorrow? It can be big, it can be small, but it should be an action. And if you can go a little bit further and maybe private message somebody in your group and saying, listen, can you keep me accountable, right? How can you go the next level?
Or post it online. Put it on social media.
Yeah.
Tag all of us. We'll hold. I do that all the time. I'm going live on Instagram or Facebook tomorrow at 7, and I don't even have anything prepared. And even if one person sees that, I'm going to show up. I'm going to do it.
Awesome. So I started Creative Pulse because I had this idea that creatives are better together in a community that pushes them to do better work and have more fun, and also just support one another. And I've found that to be true through the work that the Creative Pulse volunteers have done together. And so I want to say thank you. Usually it would be a big applause right now. Maybe we can do that. I want to see some hands clapping. Big applause to our wonderful team of volunteers who are going above and beyond right now. To give a moment of somebody's time right now is such a big deal. So I really appreciate that. Can we go to the next slide, please? I want to highlight one volunteer in particular, a very hard-working volunteer. Serena Ho is a visual and UX and UI designer. She's currently out east. She's not in Vancouver, but she's been one of our first volunteers to say, listen, I'm moving away, but I want to keep on going. And so she actually, all of the registration copy and all the writing that you see Creative Pulse produce starts with her pen. So really a huge thank you to Serena. Let's go to the next slide, please, Nathan. You can see Serena's work at Royal Bank of Canada. That's where she works. You can follow that link down there if you're interested in seeing some more of her projects, or you can email her directly. She's left her email there. She doesn't mind hearing from you. So another really great place, another really great place to connect with Serena and the other members of our team and with one another is through the new Facebook group we've launched right at the top of this pandemic. We wanted to find a way to support you and help each other, and also find ways to hold each other more accountable. And this Facebook group is the place that we do that. So we launched this last month. Members get exclusive access to different events and different conversations that aren't happening through our email list. You can join right now, facebook.com/groups/CPYVR. And I can email this link to you guys so that you can join that. I would love for that accountability conversation to happen within that Facebook group. That'd be a place where you can share that's a little bit more private with people who understand what you're going through. The gift that Michael has provided to you guys, can you tell them a little bit about this?
Yeah, for sure. I have a free online course. And so this would be really interesting. If anyone is interested in seeing how relatively simple it is to put together a course, the best way to do that is to watch someone else's course. And you'll see all it is a series of videos and a couple worksheets. And I'm thinking back now, it was a year ago that I created this course because some people in the community that I am in I've been good at growing my brand on Instagram and they haven't. So they're always asking me questions. And I'm like, all right, commit to coming online with me every once a week for 6 weeks. I put together a curriculum, and so we filmed it live, and then after that I kind of cleaned it up and reshot these videos. So it's not that complicated, but when you see how it's put together, it's really helpful. So what it is, it's a marketing course that really helps you appreciate how you can grow your brand and actually connect with your target audience on Instagram and what works and what doesn't work. Instagram is kind of a zoo these days, but so there's a lot of things that I see people doing that don't work. And ultimately it helps you take that and connect with prospects on Instagram. And the biggest thing that you're going to be challenged to do on there is to do video, because it's so important and imperative to build that connection through video. And it's a real fear that this course will help people overcome.
That's awesome. And it addresses one of the main challenges, which is audience, right? How do you actually get this thing out to somebody? So that's a great gift. And how do people get it?
Yeah, just message me on one of I'm easy to find, on Instagram or Facebook, or my email address is up there. And all I'm going to do is give you the website and give you the password. But also I like to see who's on the other end of this screen. So it'll be cool to interact that way.
That's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for giving of your time. Thank you everybody for staying with us. It's amazing that we can do this even right now. And I'm honored to be able to facilitate this and be your voice right now and have somebody like Michael share with us. So thank you so much. There's more to come. We're going to try to keep on supporting the creatives in our community. If there's something I can do for you directly, you can get in touch through social media or email. And with that, I will say good night. Thank you so much.